Hi there, I'm Kathy, and in this workshop we're going to be talking about stop motion animation and how we can use it in environmental filmmaking. Two subjects that I love very much. I'm going to be showing you a bunch of film clips and as examples maybe to inspire your own films, and I'll show you how to set up and some software and principles that will help you bring your own films to life. I am including a resource page that will go over everything we're talking about now, and I encourage you to dive deep if you want to do animation because I can only cover so much right now. So, yeah. So first I'm going to show you my own film, an animated documentary called A Sea Turtle Story. I made it for the National Film Board of Canada, and it actually screened at Planet and Focus, which is pretty cool. And I just want to tell you a bit of the background. The reason I made it as an animated documentary, which is a bit unconventional, I really wanted to speak to a wide audience. So kids, adults, whatever, everybody loves animation. Also, sea turtles do things in the cover of night. So a lot of it, we don't really get to document too much of the magic. And when I created this film, I was doing it to actually raise awareness for like turtle conservation and the fact that they're endangered. So the film has been very successful. I really thought about who my audience was. There's no speaking in the film so that it wouldn't need to be translated. It's just sit back and experience, create some conversation. It has screened anywhere from festivals to television. Amazon has it. And it's been shown in schools a lot for education, and it's even shown on airplanes, so that's pretty cool. So we're going to actually watch it. I'm going to add some commentary to this version, but I encourage you, if you have the time, to pause this right here and actually watch it the first time without my commentary, so you can see how I intended for the audience to watch it. Otherwise, you can watch from here, and I can give you some little ideas of what it took to make the film. So let's go and watch that now. So here is my film for the National Film Board of Canada. That butterfly right there is just made from paper and foil. I made, with a film crew, I helped make the sets and the puppets. Mostly I did the characters, like this gecko, which actually I took, I think it was a dog toy gecko, and I hollowed it out and I put plasticine inside of it and wired it and glued it and put different eyes on it. The monkeys in the background you're about to see, they're made from pipe cleaners. I tried to use materials that kids could use in schools, like paper and glue and cotton. That's what the clouds are made of, cotton stuffing from pillows. That water, we had never done anything like that in animation. It was cellophane and Vaseline, and the turtles were made from foam latex and plastic. I know how to make plastic. This shot is actually from above. Now, the reason I included the turtle crying was because turtles in nature, that's how they get rid of the salt water when they come on shore. But when you watch a turtle lay her eggs, it's strangely quite emotional, even though they're reptiles. In this scene, I had to convey a couple things. It was either going to be a poacher stealing the eggs coming forward, or a park warden. So we left it sort of ambiguous so that we could just create some conversation. That was a really cool shot. We actually lit the egg from behind. And a lot of these were experimental. We didn't even know if that turtle would hatch from the egg, so it's actually animated from behind. These are like almost like not prop, but stunt turtles. We made them out of plasticine and swapped them out and tried to put the two scenes together to make one scene. If that makes sense. Now, turtles will actually stop at the sand in the daytime because they feel the sand, the heat of the sand on their noses. And of course, there's predators waiting. And that's why they don't come out in the daytime usually, because everything wants to eat them. Yep, I'm the monkey voice. That's me. I didn't get a credit for it. So now we're waiting. I had to show time span and nighttime when the turtles can come out when the sand is cool. Here we go. And now it's safe to come out. Now in nature, turtles will go to, a lot of you know this, turtles will go to the brightest light source, which in nature would be the stars, but now we've got light pollution. So I had to sort of show this in the film to create conversation again. But the one little turtle figures it out. The water was, we had no idea how to do the water. We had to do a lot of experimenting. I'll put a link to behind the scenes and you can see how our studio was set up. We basically just attached shower curtains together and laid it over a big table. Now, part of my story, I had to show how many turtles actually die on the way to survival without making it too scary. And I had to show time passing right here. So because they go out into nature and about 20 years later, they're full grown and ready to reproduce as well. That last shot was shot with a silhouette from below, looking up into the lights. Everything here a lot of it was made from plasticine, like the characters. Some silicone. All the background things are made from found objects like beans and pipe cleaners, and those are car wash chamois. Now we did use the computer quite a bit in the film. We duplicated a lot of those fish with a green screen. A lot of the film was shot in green screen. You notice the foreshadowing of music, showing something dangerous is coming into the scene. Everything in this film I actually extensively researched. I went and worked with sea turtles, and I extensively researched to make sure that every species and like all the flora and fauna were real. Those kissing fish actually exist this is based in Southeast Asia. Now, I don't know how much turtles waltz like that to music. That's my little bit of creative license. But my composer is a friend of mine, and 3 of us actually did the music. I played some of the instruments on this, but the music really, everything was live, and Those gibbons that you just heard, I actually recorded gibbons and cicadas in Thailand, so that's all live sounds. I thought it would put a bit of magic in it. And this is like 25, 30 years later, and I wanted to show the full life cycle of a sea turtle from birth to reproducing. Now only maybe 1 in 1,000 sea turtles live to adulthood because they're so vulnerable. And that's me. So I won't make you sit through the credits. They're pretty long. It took I had quite a big film crew. But yeah, I highly recommend watching it without me speaking through it. And I'll put a link to some more behind the scenes so you can see what our studio looked like. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed. So when you're making your film, you really need to think about how you're going to speak to your audience, what will engage them. You can maybe use animation to do your entire film like mine, or you can do it, for your title sequence or your film credits. You can do infographics, recreations. Animation is such a wonderful tool because people really do pay attention to animation, and you can push the boundaries. Think about how you might use that effectively, and don't just use animation for the sake of animation. Maybe your film is better as a documentary with animated elements. This is such a nice little example of claymation. I love that you can see the fingerprints even. It's not perfect, and it's charming, lots of cuts, lots of great sound effects, and there's no talking, so it doesn't need to be translated, which is beautiful. We're just following a simple story, and I think it's quite compelling. The important thing is to really think about your story and plan it out before you make it with a little script and storyboards. This is a beautiful little PSA, a public service announcement using pixelation, and they're shooting from above. Very poetic with nice music. And it makes you feel, which I think is effective. This is from incredible filmmaker Isaac King, one of my old colleagues and fellow alumni from Planet Focus. He's screened with them. You can see all his amazing awards, and I'm just so impressed with his films. Generally speak to environmental issues, and this film is called The Whatever Tree, and it's using paper cutout and pixelation and lots of different media. He's using obviously a lot of technology for this as well. Collage, live action. I'll put a link up of this on the resource page so you could take your time and watch it. We'll just watch a clip from it now. Again, no speaking in it, which is beautiful. I'm assuming he'd be using a program called After Effects, which helps sort of bring all the elements together. We're not going to get into that. That's definitely professional, or if you're like really into it. I love that you can see with his cutouts, you can actually see the edges, and it looks very organic, especially since it's speaking to technology. So the stuff like the glow would be done in the computer afterwards. I just think this is genius. But maybe you want to do paper cutout and it's just got a simple background, or you're using a photographic background maybe. Kind of a simple version of this. And again, just adding like a bird's flapping wings can bring that paper to life. Or the tapping of icons or texting. Okay, we're going to pause it there. And please, I encourage you to watch the whole thing. It's over 10 minutes long. And he's got other films as well, which are equally as amazing. We're really lucky because Isaac is very candid about sharing his behind the scenes. Here's Isaac, hard at work, with a animation light board. I love that he's doing old school like drawing, and he's basically kind of going backwards. He's planning out all the moves, and then he's cutting out. He's putting it into in the computer to show the animation, and then obviously we're not going to get this ambitious with our films. He's been doing animation for years, but you can maybe take some elements from this for inspiration. There's that nest and all the cutout birds. So please, I encourage you, I'm going to end that here, but instead of going down the rabbit hole, but I encourage you to watch this inspiring behind the scenes. I could watch this forever. I'm going to stop it here. I chose this one because I like, even though this is done more in traditional animation, I love the simple story of this. You could actually recreate this in stop motion animation nicely, something like this. Shooting it with paper or even plasticine.
I'm just a bit too big. I work fine, I just don't look that good. Well, something...
Again, that's a really long film, so I'm not going to... Here's an example of using stop motion animation as an infographic. A super short 16-second infographic here. Infographics can be boring, right? So think about why not use it as a collage animation to get your message across. Perhaps this is part of your documentary, if that's what you choose. We won't watch the whole thing of this, but TED Ed, which I highly recommend looking at their content. They do TED Talks. They have these little information videos, and animation is perfect for this. These guys have actually made a stop motion video of how to make a stop motion video. It's a lesson in animation, and I'll just show you a little clip from this.
Enough mutations can bypass these failsafes, driving the cell to divide recklessly. That one rogue cell becomes 2, then 4, and 8.
How do you animate real materials like brains and nerves and stuff like that? How do you take something that doesn't move?
So that's actually, we used a method called stop motion animation, in which you are moving the objects underneath.
They're using green screen here.
One at a time, and you take a picture for each picture that you've created. So for this, we were watching a lot of videos on how cell division works, and from that I created a line drawn animation that was my reference animation. And using the software that we use for stop motion, I was actually able to look
That's
at
like the software you will be using.
Shooting. So I could kind of...
That's called an onion skin, when you can see through your, like it's showing you the last, oh actually sorry, that's rotoscoping. So this is actually rotoscoping, where they actually took in their line drawing animation first, and they copied it. So if you get Stop Motion Studio the paid version, you can actually bring in videos to that version and copy like your perfect animation, or maybe you're using a video that you want to copy for movement. And these animators were using green screen, which I'm sure a lot of you know what green screen is, but when you use green screen, you can actually duplicate, like put a different background in. Maybe you want to duplicate that, take it in the computer and duplicate that animation a few times, so you don't have to keep animating it over and over again. So this is a great example of where you'd use animation for the credits of your film. And they're doing a bit of live action pixelation and animation together. Super fun. You've got the idea. I'll put on another one. Here's a great example of claymation in movie credits from the old days. They wouldn't have had computers when they did this. This is probably from the 50s, my guess. Gumby was like this as well, if you've ever seen Gumby. How much fun this is. Some paper cutout credits. This example of opening credits done with claymation. It's from There's Something About Mary. Now, keep in mind, these are professional animators. You can go for this, and I'm sure some of you could actually create this. It would take a little bit of time for sure. They're shooting it from above, so they're actually have the camera hanging from above. I'll show you that setup. I just thought I'd include this because it's so much fun. I mean, that, without the credits, could be its own film about the environment, couldn't it? All done in plasticine and with some, I think those are plastic leaves in the background.
His friends would say, "Stop whining, they've had enough of
And again,
that."
it's all about your
His friends would say,
the music in
"Stop
this.
pining, there's other girls to look at."
And this one's kind of neat because it's just like those old school fridge magnets that they've used for an opening credit. When you're setting up, you need to think about your equipment. What do you have access to? Do you have a phone? Are you going to be shooting this on your phone or your tablet? The cool thing is these days we can do that. Back in the old days, pre-computers even, they had to take an old-fashioned camera and just go click, 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 take these pictures, and then they'd have to cut them all together to make a moving film. Now, the beautiful thing is you've got software and apps, and the other cool thing is you can get free versions of things. So the app that I do recommend is called Stop Motion Studio. There is a free version that you can use, and it does a lot. So you actually don't even need to invest in the full version, but if you really want to get into stop motion with all the features, I highly recommend getting, like, I think it's like $6 or $7 on the App Store. Otherwise, I mean, if you're going into computers and you get really into it, you're going to learn a program called Drag and Frame. But I'm not going to be going over that. There's lots of tutorials online if you feel like this is something you want to get into. But so let's look at Stop Motion Studio. So on your resource page, there's actually I've put some links for Stop Motion Studio's website, which has tutorials. I'm going to show you one of the first tutorials here that basically tells you how to set up and do your animation.
Motion
stop-motion animation is an amazing technique. You can do things that seem impossible, like giving life to objects. Creating your own animation with the Stop Motion Studio app is super simple. Open the app, create a project, place your object, tap the camera icon, and start taking pictures while moving your object a tiny bit after each photo. In this example, we are going to make this flamingo turn around. To do so, we will take around 14 pictures. Stop motion is a slow process, so be patient and keep moving your object only in small steps. Once we have turned the flamingo all the way around, we click on the play button and the flamingo seems like it moves by itself. That's the magic of animation. By going back, you can see all the frames you just took and edit them. Here you can change the frame rate, meaning you can choose how many frames per second will be shown when you play your video. In our example, you can see that the flamingo moves faster or slower depending on the frame rate. When you've finished your animation, return to the project menu and export your movie. This way, you can share it with friends or on social media. Now you know how to do your own animation. By using whatever you have at hand. You can make a sandcastle seem to be built by itself and destroy it again. Or you can tell a story with a puppet. There are no limits.
This is a beautiful, simple tutorial that I'll include in your resource on how to actually use Stop Motion Studio to do line drawings, if that's what you want to do. So here we go. Let's watch this one fully.
name is Ryoko, and I'm a music educator in the tinkering studio at the Exploratorium. So today, I'm going to show you how you can start making animation with only 2 pictures. We call it 2-frame animation. But usually it takes a long time to create stop-motion animation because you need to take lots of photos. So you might spend hours and just to get 10 or 20 seconds animation. Well, with 2-frame animation, you would need only 2 pictures and you're going to play them in a loop like this. And actually there's so much you could do within that 2 frames. So that's what we're going to explore today.
This is a cool example of 2-frame animation with stop motion.
This is made of 2 pictures, and it's just showing the 2 pictures alternately. The frame 1 with all the pins down, and the frame 2, I pulled all the pins up. In between the frames, I also swapped the eyes to make them blinking.
Blinking really brings your characters to life, so if you guys do longer animations, I highly recommend making expression in your eyes and blinking.
Pictures with our phone. And some kind of secure phone stand like this.
Look at that. I love her DIY stands. So if you don't have a tripod, that's totally fine. Look at this.
It can hold your phone. Like curtain. Or you can cut out cardboard tubes. You could use some hooks to hold your phone like this.
You can do this with tablets as well, obviously on a larger scale.
You're going to need some objects to animate.
But make sure your camera, no matter what, does not move, or it will make your animation jarring. So I'm going to leave that there. You guys can watch that on the links if you want to go further with this. So this is my setup, really basic on my kitchen table. I've taped this Bristol board down, and I just wanted to make it a very simple black background so you guys can see the animation. Okay, let's go from here. Okay, so first I'm gonna start my movie, and then we want to do our frame rate. So frame rate is in here. Default would be about 6. I'd say either go 12 to 15 frames, and then we go done. And now you can mess around with, you've got all these other features if you buy the full version, but if not, you can still do things like you've got your SD, HD, what quality do you want? Aspect ratio, you want it probably for a film screen. So we're going to do this wide one. So if you get the full version, you have access to green screen and remote camera, but right now we're just going to do camera. Let's change the brightness or contrast. You can mess around with some different levels. I want it really dark so you can see my animation. And that's actually, you can zoom in if you want, but we're not going to. But if you do at some point want to zoom in, that's a good way to do it. Okay, I feel like we're done. So I've set this one up with a tripod that I got off of Amazon for about $40, and it hooks onto, in this case it's a chair, but you can hook it onto the table. Okay, we're just going to look at some principles and tips to help with your animation. It's really a good idea to study movement. So animators get really into, how people walk and how people move their heads, or look at your characters. How do they move? You can act out a movement, or you can actually, we're lucky because we can go right online and look at videos of different animals. Maybe you're looking at how a shark swims, or how a turtle swims, or how a cheetah moves. So you can look at real footage. So for example, with butterflies, they flutter. They're quite erratic when they move, and they move around fast and they dance through the sky. Whereas a hawk will soar through the sky smooth and slow. They don't necessarily have to flap their wings. They can just glide, which the movement would be quite different with this. So let's look at dogs and cats. Let's think about a dog's tail. What do dogs do? They wag their tail fast. So that's actually less frames of animation. You can actually speed that up to make it go faster as well. So it's super excited. Whereas a cat usually just sways its tail, which is a lot more pictures. What does a cat do with its nose? Usually they don't put their noses to the ground and sniff, but dogs do quite often. That's a nice character trait that you can animate. Dogs tend to pant and their tongues come right out. Some cats do it, but it's not as common. And look at their tails, there's a difference. When you're shooting your animation, you'll usually be doing anywhere from 12 frames a second to 24. I recommend between 12 and 15. But think about that. That's 1 second of animation. That's a lot of pictures. If you want your object to move slowly, you're going to move it in smaller increments. So just move it a tiny, tiny bit and take a picture. Move it a tiny bit. If you want to make it look like it's going faster, increase the movement between the spaces. So you're going to move it a bigger distance, and that will make it go faster. Make natural pauses to space the actions out. Maybe this is where you have a character blink a few times or have a swaying palm. You don't have to have a lot of action in it, just a pause. If everything happens at the same time, your audience could get confused. First, you're going to brainstorm your idea. Is there a certain topic that you want to cover? A certain issue? Is it going to be climate change and an endangered species that you want to raise awareness for? Then you're going to write your story or your script. Make sure to consider your audience and the purpose of your film. And keep it simple if you're doing animation, because animation, as we know, is a bit complicated and time-consuming. Then you will storyboard your major actions. It doesn't matter if you can draw well, just as long as you can tell, even with a stick person, what the major actions are. This will help you figure out if it's possible to animate it. Are there going to be any obstacles? How will you make something fly? Then you're going to add your sound effects and your setups. So are there certain camera moves that you want to do or different scenes? You'll figure this out in your storyboard. Then, next you're going to animate your film. Now, I suggest always practicing your animation. Make sure you understand, how much you have to move your objects and your pacing. If you're going to morph something. So practice. When you go into your shooting, try to edit as much as possible here, meaning make sure to watch it back. And, if something is too fast, maybe you want to actually, it may be faster to reanimate it as opposed to fixing it in your edit. If there's any hands in your frames, make sure you take them out at the stage. In the last stage, you're going to edit. You're going to add frames if you need to. You're going to tweak and speed up if necessary. Add your sounds and music and credits. These are my final thoughts. One of the most important things to consider when coming up with your idea for your film is your audience, like I mentioned before. Do you want this to reach all ages? What's your demographic? Is there a specific demographic? Is it only for kids? Will it need to be translated? Where will it live? Will it live on the big screen, for a competition in a film festival, on social media, or all of these things? What is your timeline? That's super important. If you've got a deadline for a competition, you've got to do a work back. How long will it take you to do this? What equipment do you have access to? Will you be a solo filmmaker, or are you going to work with a crew? And if you have a crew, what are your roles? You've got to really define who's doing what. Everybody's usually pretty strong at something, so there's like a natural division in your crew. And also that in the real world, you would be working with a film crew. Otherwise, are you going to do it by yourself? And most of all, enjoy the journey. we are all students and learning how to tell our stories, and we're going to make mistakes and we're going to learn, and the most important thing is that you're trying to do this. Enjoy.